So, we are in Bucharest, the 2nd of June, Bucharest BookFest. Israel is the special guest of this event. We are with
Yaar Peretz.
Yaar Peretz and
Gil.
Gil.
Yes.
Okay.
And then
So,
I don't understand your full name.
what you say about this event and what you say about this earlier presentation?
Well, for me, it's first and foremost an emotional experience to come here. I didn't think I'll have such a strong emotional reaction, but at first we went to the Middle East stand and we tried to find some information about Palestine. We found a few books, one in French and one in Arabic, of Palestinian authors, and we found very little information in English, in Romanian practically none, and I didn't even see a Palestinian flag. I found, again, one of the books have Hendele, which is a great symbol of a character by Naji Ali, who is still by today a very strong symbol for Palestinians that represents freedom and the idea that Palestinians have a right to return to their homes. But I was a bit disappointed, but I enjoyed to see a few books that represents what I believe in, represents values of justice and freedom and equality between Jews and Arabs, or between Israelis and Palestinians. And then I found the Israeli stand. My first reaction was a strong emotional reaction, but I felt that things are not balanced, or as I dare say, the situation itself is not balanced. But when I thought about it, I realized that this situation reflects the reality, the unfortunate reality where Palestine and the ideas of Palestinians and their call for human rights and justice are unfortunately undermined, and their voice is still being silenced and not heard in Europe, while the voice of Israeli propaganda and the voice of Zionism is still very, very strong. And the reason it is strong is perhaps economic reasons and the amount of money that Israel puts in propaganda. They call it hasbara in Hebrew. It means the Israeli propaganda, in order to present Israel as if Israel reached out their hand for peace, and to show as if Israel is a country with freedom of speech and with equality, and as if it is a state that represents democratic and moral values. But in reality, Israel completely disregards basic human rights of the Palestinians. It can be seen as either ethnic cleansing, which is what is going on in the West Bank, or as genocide, which is the reality in Gaza, where people who are in Gaza are completely imprisoned and have no way to guarantee their safety or their ability to have clean water, and children and people die from disease because they don't have access to water, and the fishermen cannot fish, they cannot provide for their families, because when they come too close to international territory, then Israel shoots at the fishermen in Gaza. And when people get too close to the wall, they are being shot at. And once every few years, there's a military operation where Israel bombs Gaza completely and destroy houses and civilian population, like hospitals and the UN camps. With thousands of casualties and tens of thousands of people who lose their homes in each so-called war, in each operation of Israel against the residents of Gaza. So it is a complete closed prison where people cannot leave and cannot enter. It is the most crowded place in the world, and and Israel has a list of items that are not allowed, like from crayons to pasta, in order to keep the Palestinian population on the verge of starvation, so they cannot develop themselves and be a so-called threat on Israel. So the few who manage to smuggle things through tunnels, and they bring through tunnels basic needs such as from fuel to food, smuggled through the tunnels are also under constant attack by Israel, and they destroy these tunnels, and people die in those tunnels. So it is a closed, completely enclosed prison. While the situation in the West Bank is not as difficult as in Gaza, in the sense that it is not a full genocide, but is what is defined as ethnic cleansing under international law, where the population is constantly under attack and people get night invasion. Palestinian families get night invasions of the army, and people are completely under siege in most of the Palestinian villages and cities. They are enclosed, and if they do not have special permits and privileges, they are denied entrance to Israel, and of course they are denied access from one place in Palestine to another, from one village inside Palestine to another village. So women who are in labor can die at a checkpoint because an 18-year-old soldier will not let them pass because they do not have the right permits, or if they do not have, or if the checkpoint is extremely crowded. So in Palestine, people who are against the occupation, it can be in an active level or being against the occupation and trying to express their freedom of speech, the so-called freedom of speech. These are people who are targeted by Israel and are even further oppressed than the rest. So, for example, I work as an attorney and I represent Palestinians. I represented Palestinians in the Israeli Supreme Court, and these are Palestinians who used to work in Israel, but one day they woke up and they tried to reach work, and the soldier told them that you're a security threat by the Israeli security service. You're not allowed to pass. You're not allowed to go to your job. And these Palestinians, who their whole life and their whole family rely on their ability to work in Israel or in Palestine 48, are constantly being attacked by the Israeli security service. And the way they do it is very interesting. The Palestinian who is denied entrance by the security service is invited to meet the security service for interrogation, and in that interrogation they try to convince them to work as a collaborator, which is against the Geneva Conventions. The security service meets Palestinians who work in Israel, and they try to convince them to work with the secret service, to give information, to be a collaborator, in a way to be traitors for their own country, and to tell them who is active in which political movement, and to be actually in full collaboration with the secret service. The ones who refuse, and I can tell you from my experience, most of the Palestinians refuse to do, and by the large majority of the Palestinians refuse to be collaborators with the secret service because they know this is a big risk for their lives. And the ones who refused are being attacked by the secret service. They are denied permits. They cannot continue their jobs, and sometimes a whole family of 10 or 50 people are dependent on one or two Palestinians who are able to, or lucky enough to work in Palestine 48 or in Israel. So this is one system out of many systems of an apartheid system where the population is completely divided between those who are with Jewish ethnicity and the Palestinian residents. And so when I come here and I see that there is no representation to Palestine, this is not by coincidence. There are in Romania activists who support the rights of the Palestinians. They do events and they share information, and they would really be happy to present here books and articles and information about Palestine. But unfortunately, the Romanian government or the Romanian organizers of this expedition decided to collaborate with Israel, and not only that, to put Israel as a special guest of honor. And this is something that I cannot be silent about. I cannot just sit aside while in such an important place like Bucharest, which is a place of culture and history, that has known violence in its past, to allow a country where death has no dominion, to allow a country that completely disregards of the basic human rights of the population of the Palestinians, who completely unlocks and closes Palestinians under conditions that are completely inhumane, and where every day for Palestinians is a fight for their survival, where every day Palestine wakes up to the occupation and wakes up to a situation where he cannot go to university, cannot go to a hospital, he is deprived of work, their olive trees are being taken in order to build a wall, and the settlers take over their natural resources, just as water and agricultural lands. So for Palestinians who live under this situation every day, they experience the occupation of Israel. To have an event that is worship to the so-called Israel pluralism and Israel culture and Israel ideas is something that is completely unjust. And there are at least 50 Israeli authors or Israeli citizens that are critical towards this policy, that are critical towards the policy of the occupation. It's from Ilan Pape to Noam Chomsky and Gideon Levy and Amir Haas, and there's an endless list, or not endless, there is a list of...
Did you find any,
Of course, I did not find any Israeli authors. I would look again, but I did not find, from the search that I've done, I did not find any Israeli authors who are critical towards these policies. And during these talks, I've listened to one talk, but from the one talk that I've listened to, I didn't hear even once an explanation or regarding the situation in Palestine, which is something that I see as absurd. I expect to get answers. I expect if an Israeli author or Israeli publicist is speaking about his life or about the Hebrew language, I expect him to address this topic. I expect him to give answers, moral answers and political answers, or just to give his own personal opinion about the situation in Palestine, to say something about this absurd situation, absurd conflict. I gave you one opinion. Of course, there are many opinions, but the minimum thing I ask is to address this issue of Palestine,
to talk about it,
to address this topic and to say something about it. Right now, across the globe, there are trade unions and student unions and groups and financial institutions that are promoting the BDS campaign, that are supporting the Palestinian campaign for boycott, divestment and sanctions against Israel. These groups are growing rapidly, and people are starting, at least the way I see it, people are starting to understand that the situation in Israel is a situation that cannot be tolerated, that the world and people, individuals need to say no to the occupation, need to say no to violations of human rights, need to say no to checkpoints, no to settlers taking over lands of Palestine. People are trying to say no, and the way to say no is not to cooperate with Israeli institutions that are inflicting those policies on everyday lives on the Palestinians. So if you are an Israeli citizen and you come here, it is, of course, it is great to have people express their opinions, but to express your opinion without addressing to this fundamental issue that that touches the everyday life of every Israeli and every Palestinian is something that I think is unjust. It's unfair, and it is something that I completely see as a violent act of the Jewish ethnocracy and the Israeli claim over the land of Palestine. For me, this is a very, very difficult, emotional experience to come to Romania and to see that expedition is completely complacent with Israeli policies of apartheid, while there's completely no representation for opinions that are critical towards these policies. While Israel itself, or Israelis themselves, view are critical towards these policies. So that is it. I think it's not up to me to say. It's up people who are interested in the situation in Palestine can. And now information is widely available online, and people can come and visit themselves, of course. But even if people cannot come and visit Palestine themselves, they can go to their own. In each country, in each big city in Europe and in the United States, you have a Palestine solidarity group. So if you will search for your Palestine solidarity group in your own city, you will find people who visited Palestine. You will find Palestinians who are now currently living in Europe. You will find people who share the same values and the same ideals of equality and freedom and human rights, and you will see that it is possible to say no, and it is possible to resist, and it is possible to resist the policies that Israel is conducting by protesting, by demanding answers from Israelis who come to Europe without addressing to the issue of the occupation. I think this is our obligation as people who have the privilege as people who have the privilege to enjoy a life without constant persecution of army and invasion to our homes and starvation. We have these basic rights. We need to stand up to those officials, to those people who are in high status of power inside Israel, and to ask the answers, to ask them, why is this? How is it possible that you can come here but the Palestinian cannot? How is it possible that you can travel freely but a Palestinian writer is locked and completely segregated from the land, from the occupier? How is it possible that you have a land where when you're Jewish, when you come from a Jewish ethnicity, you can move freely and travel the world and travel Palestine freely with all those settlements inside the West Bank? How is it possible that you can travel freely and enjoy a luxurious life while your fellow Palestinian who has the same profession, if you're an attorney, why is a Palestinian attorney cannot represent in the Israeli Supreme Court? Why is it possible for people of Jewish ethnicity who are Israeli citizens to cross over the lines and act as if the whole land belongs to them and take over the resources, and while the Palestinians are completely enclosed and their territory is becoming much smaller, and every day there's a new settlement that is being built, okay, and every day there's a new land that is being taken. So to conclude this, I think that I'm disappointed on the one hand by this event, but I think this is a proof, the fact that Israel puts so much money and so much resources on propaganda shows you that the struggle for the voice of the Palestinians and the struggle against the occupation, the BDS campaign, is something that is very successful. Because in the past, Israeli authors did not have the privilege to be sponsored by the government in order to travel around the world and speak. They had to find resources themselves. But today, Israeli authors enjoy even more privileges because the government itself pushes them and sponsors them and allows them to speak and to be a part of the Israeli propaganda. So from year to year, Israel increased their budget and their resources in order to fight the BDS campaign, in order to advocate Israel as if it is a state that reached out its hand for peace. But this is not a reality. Israel is not a state that is reaching out hand for peace. Israel is a state that is completely disregards basic human rights, that completely violates international humanitarian law, that is occupying and controlling people because of their ethnicity, because they are not a part of the Jewish ethnicity, and this is something that cannot be overlooked, that must stand against. So this is basically it.
Thank you, Yaar.